Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining our second of four training sessions that we give to people that have downloaded our PowerOLAP personal software. This is the second, as I said, of four presentations. I'm just going to mute all of the microphones. If you want to ask questions, please chat in the chat box in the GoToMeeting at around the bottom. Now that we are there, I also want to make you aware of the materials that you can download. There is a quick start manual that goes with discovering of the PowerOLAP personal software. We deal with that a little bit more we dealt with it yesterday in the first training session. I do advise you to download it and work through it with your PowerOLAP personal software. So tonight's session is called Manipulating Data in PowerOLAP Slices. We'll be looking more, a little bit deeper at the PowerOLAP interface itself. But before we go on, I just want to show you the other trainings that are available. So we already spoke about the Getting Started with PowerOLAP that is conducted on Tuesdays. Tonight is Slice Views in PowerOLAP. Tomorrow, normally on Thursdays, we deal with a whole number of Excel-based formulas that enables you to connect Excel to the PowerOLAP database. And then our sessions on Fridays is about connecting to relational data sources, and we also look at formulas, and we look at alternative ways of importing, cube formulas inside the PowerOLAP database. And we also look at importing and exporting data in a different way than the OLAP Exchange functionality can do. These sessions are held twice per month at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. respectively. So this week we are doing it at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and on the alternative week we do it in the mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So just quickly, what is PARIS Technologies? PARIS is an acronym that stands for Planning, Analysis, Reporting, Information Systems. We differentiate ourselves in the business intelligence space by the fact that we pride ourselves in concentrating not just on historic and current reporting, but enabling our customers to have a view of the future of the company by giving them agile ways of budgeting, forecasting, and reforecasting. Today's session, I want you to imagine that you are the financial manager of a company called Leonardo da Vinci Corporation, and you are tasked by management to create some budget revenue reports. Now, once you see how they are done in PowerOLAP, you will realize how much easier it is to do them in Excel spreadsheets. So we're going to work on a couple of them, 6 in total. First is going to be month on the rows and accounts on the columns. The second will have regions on the rows and months on the columns. The third report, we will have 2 dimensions on the rows and 1 dimension on the columns. The fourth report will be a product by month report, and the fifth one we will show the top 5 regions where we expect most revenue from, and then our last report will be a comparison, a variance report between actual and budget for a 12-month period for all of the accounts. So let's jump into a demonstration. We'll come back to this slide later on. I'm just going to move this away, and let's look at the PowerOLAP interface. So I've already opened up a local database called LDV Corp. Now PowerOLAP not is able to connect to a server environment which your PowerOLAP personal software is not able to do. So you will be working with a local database always when you work with our free PowerOLAP personal software. So this is exactly what it would look like. Then we've in this database we have created some dimensions, and I'm quickly going to run through them. The first one that I want to look at is the month dimension over here. I can either double click on month or click on edit, and this is what the dimension looks like. So on the left hand side you've got a list of all the individual members in what we call a natural order. So January would be my first member, February my second member. This natural order becomes important when you start creating reports with these members in these dimensions. On the right hand side you will see a total aggregate for total here. You will see the quarters rolling up or aggregating into total here, and then the individual detail months that aggregate into the different quarters respectively. There are two types of members. The one is the detail member, which is at the lowest level of a hierarchy, and the aggregate members, which are in between and at the top level of such a hierarchy. So what we're first going to do is create some extra members. I'm double clicking on that total here, and then I press Control Enter, which creates me a new member. I'm going to call it half year 1. Sorry, let's just fix that, half year 1. The other way of creating a new member is by clicking on this first button, and we're going to call that half year 2, and I'm going to arrange them in this way. Now what I'm going to do is make these two the sibling of total here, siblings of total here, and for that I've got these buttons at the top. Add selected members as children would add them like first quarter and second quarter as children of total here. We're going to look at the first the button here that says add selected members as siblings. So I click on that, and lo and behold you'll see the two members that I've selected on the left hand side being automatically added as siblings of total here. Then we are going to create the first and second quarter as children of half year 2. What is that? Oh, hang on, let's do this again. I pressed the wrong. Let's just do that again. Okay, so we want to say add selected members as child. I pressed the wrong button over there. There we go. So first and second quarter are children now of half year, and third and fourth quarter are going to be children of half year 2. So there we go, there's our dimension. That's a month dimension. Let's quickly look at the other dimensions. These ones are a little bit bigger. We've got an income statement structure here, before tax profit. We have got contribution, which is net margin minus variable costs. Net margin is revenue minus cost of goods sold. This -1 is what we call a weight. So if I double click here, I could change that to another value. The default is 1. So if I double click, for instance, on revenue, you'll see that the default is 1. I can change the weight either by double clicking on a member, or I can click on this button to specify the member's weight. Let's look further down. There are our variable costs, and then the fixed cost gets deducted from the contribution in order to calculate the before tax profit. So that's account structure. The product structure, we have got the total products, then we have got 3 product categories and individual product items that roll up into the product categories. And the region dimension, you'll see, is We've got Asia Pacific that just has one level below it, but both Europe and the Americas has got 2 levels below. So we've got Western Europe, for instance, and we've got North America. That's our regional structure. And then the version dimension has got 2 aggregates, one for the current year and one for the previous year. So we've got current year budget, current year actual, that gets calculated there in the budget variance, and prior year variance is the prior year actual and prior year budget. So let's click OK here and click OK. So before I show you a slice in PowerOLAP, let's just talk about these terms that I've mentioned so that you familiarize yourself better with them. So dimensions we've looked at. Definition of that is to consist of a list of similar type members like months, quarters, in the months dimension, and cities in the regions dimension. Members identify data items position, that was that natural order or the hierarchy that we spoke about, and the description within a dimension, that's the different member names like January and February and March. Then cubes consist of a list of dimensions, which is what we will look at next, and the cubes we use to view consolidated multi-dimensional information in our database. And the way that we view it is by creating a 2-dimensional slice from that cube in order to see the data inside such a cube. A slice is similar to Excel spreadsheet with rows and columns, and it compares different business dimensions to each other. So the reports that we're going to create, I'm just going to move this again to my other screen so that we follow strictly what I want to do. So the cube you'll see over here, this is the only cube that we've got, and we are going to create a slice from this one cube by clicking in the slice ribbon. We click on the new slice button and click OK, and that's the slice that you see. Now there aren't any values in here yet because the recalculation mode is currently set to manual. When I press this button or press the F9 key on my keyboard, it will bring through the values into my slice that you can see. Now there are 2 ways that we can slice from a cube. This is the new way that we have created. I don't prefer it, and you'll see why. You can move dimensions around very easily, but let's see, how can I move this one around? Now, you see it's not that easy, it's not that intuitive. I'm going to show you the one that I prefer, and the way that I select it is to go to the home ribbon and say traditional slice, and let's go back to slice. So before we do that, let's change the calculation mode. So when I click on the options button in the home ribbon, I get this options dialog box where I can set the formatting of my numbers and these general settings. The calculation mode I'm going to set to automatic. So when I now create a slice or make a slice from my financials cube, you will see the calculations made automatically. The values are brought into the cube, and the structure of the cube you can see on the left hand side. We've got 3 boxes. So the bottom box tells us which dimension is on the rows. You can see it's the months dimension at the moment. The accounts dimension is on the columns, and then these we call them page members or page filters. They tell us which pages in a set of reports we are looking at. So what you need to imagine is that this becomes a template of multiple sheets. If you want to compare it with an Excel workbook, each of these reports, I'm going to change the version from prior year budget to current year budget. because that's what we want to look at. Each of these changes, so for each current year budget, there is all of these regions available, and there's currently we're just looking at the desktop products for Australia. In this cube, in this slice, we probably have about 30 members here. We have got, let's say, 15, so 30 times 15 times 6. That gives you the number of sheets or reports that you've got in this template. And that is what makes it so much easier, because you don't have to have different sheets. You only have got this one sheet, and you change them by selecting a different one over here. Now, we're not going to focus on the Excel interface, but I do want to show you quickly. If I press this button, Create Excel Worksheet, then I can put this very quickly into Excel. We'll look more at the Excel functionality tomorrow. There you go. There is my template. We can add normal Excel formatting. And what I want you to take note of is I can change my page member here to a different one. I'm not going to do that now. We're going to stay on Australia. And when I go back to the PowerOLAP slice, when I change a value over here, let's make that 100,000, you will see that the aggregates update automatically. So net margin for January is updated, so has the first quarter revenues updated, and the net margin first quarter, as well as the total year and half years. So the structure of the dimensions keep the logic of all of these dimensions intact, and that means that you don't have to write any formulas for the aggregations in a PowerOLAP cube. You'll see that I haven't written any formulas yet. There are only aggregations so far. So let's save this slice as month by account, and I can then return later on to this structure and simply open up the slice. So I can come back here and open that month by account so that I can retrieve the template and continue working with it. Our next report is going to be regions by month. So I'm going to take my month dimension to the columns, my account dimension up here, and regions down. So that is what we're going to look at next. The next thing, so this is our second report, and you see how quickly we created it. I can save this slice as region by month. And there we have it. Oops. So that's how quickly we move from one view to another view to create our second report. Now let's see how we can further manipulate our view. Let's take, for instance, that we just want to see the first quarter data. In this edit dialog box, you've got different options. You can select members by ascending or descending order. So if I say ascending or natural order, they flip around. If I say I only want to see the top level, that's the second level as well, and the lowest level as well. That's one way of looking at members. Now I can either select them over here and bring them across by clicking on that button, Add Selected Members. That's one way of doing it. I can remove the selected members from the right hand side. On my second tab, I've got the possibility of looking at a hierarchy. So let's for instance, if we want to select all the deepest members, then I can click on that button, or I can say select the children of a specific member, or I can say let's take the focus level, so it will only select the members at that level. Now we just want the first quarter and its children, so our button that we're going to select is that one, and I can either press that button again or I can drag them across. The other thing I want to show here is the display groups. So we've got aliases set up. An alias is simply a different name for a member that has got a one-to-one relationship. So we've got a short name for our members. Currently you're looking here at January, February and March. We now click OK. Now we're only seeing the first quarter, and you see the abbreviations Jan, Feb and MAR for the individual months. Now a different way of sorting and viewing slices is I can do it in the view over here in the slice. So I can say, for instance, click right and say keep selected member, and I've only selected total region, and then I can either expand it over here or contract it again, go to the low levels. So that's one way of doing it. Let's just come back to all of our members. Okay. And then there's something else that I want to show you is you can sort numerically. For instance, now it shows you all the values in a numerical order. When I press F9, it jumps back into the normal order. So this is our region by month report. Now let's look at region per product. So I'm going to bring down there we go. We want to see it the other way around. So we're looking for each product, we're looking at a region. And then if I scroll down, there's my next product and all of the regions. And then my next product, etc. Now, this has the advantage that on one sheet you've got can have multiple parameters in terms of the dimensions. On a sheet, it's typical if you're a senior manager, you want to see multiple regions or multiple products nested in each other. That's what I would do that for. Now the next one, I'm going to drag the regions to the pages, and we've got a product by month report. And what I want you to take note of is that we've got a unspecified product. And one of the things that I can do is I can constrain my slice. So here in the slice ribbon, I click on the constrain slice button, click on the hide empty rows, and then you see that disappearing. I'm going to switch the regions and the products again, and we're going to remove the aggregates. So I'm going to highlight all of the aggregates, delete the selected members, because we want to create a report now for the top 5 regions based on the first quarter. So I'm going to change this to revenue because this is a revenue report. And we are going to say, based on the first quarter, we want the top 5 countries. So I go back into the constraint slice interface, take off the empty rows, click in the row constraints, and pick the first quarter. And then say top, or I can type top, space, and type the number 5. When I click, you'll see that we only see the top 5 products. Sorry, the top 5 regions. So let's switch back to the regions and product and remove the constraints. So one thing you would want to do is rearrange members. Typically you would want your first quarter behind or at the end of my report, so I can simply drag them around. Click OK, then we see that over there. Let's do the same with the products. So computers, we're going to drag below the computers, color monitor, the monitors over there, and the miscellaneous over there. Click OK, and there you see a report, and we can save this slice again. So I'm going to say this is product by month. we're resaving that one over there. Okay. Then let's look at the last report. That is where we take all of the months. So we're going to include everything up to total here. And I'm going to bring down the accounts to the rows so that you can see all of the accounts, and then I am going to bring down the version below the months. And the versions that we want to look at is the budget variance, the current year budget, and current year actual. And there's a button over here. It's called the invert selection button. So especially when you're working with large dimensions, it's very useful to be able to select the ones that you do want, then invert the selection, and then press your delete button on your keyboard to remove what you don't want to see. So let's order them in a nice way. And there you can see January, February, March, and for each you see the budgeted actual, the actual budget figures and the variance. Now, you might ask, what about the end user's ability to capture data into the actuals? Now, you will typically not allow end users to capture data into actuals or certain other areas of the cube, and for that we have got an area called database privileges, where I can secure a database where I have got set up users and user groups, and then I can assign security to different areas of my cube. I'm not going to show you exactly how we write these formulas, but the way that you will do it, oops, let's just go back here, model, database privileges. I think I have done something wrong here because I can't. Let's just close my database quickly. Sorry about that. Let's press F9 and see whether it opens the database without. There we go. Okay, so let's go back here. So I've shown you where you turn on security, and we can write security rules then by clicking over here, fact data security rules, write rules like read only, and what we're going to say is that actuals, prior year actuals and current year actuals should be allow and the right certain users, like the users, to read only. And that would be a rule that will disallow people to write back to that area of the cube. So that's something that I quickly wanted to show you. Let's open up I don't have it. Let's just quickly create another slice. There's a few things that I want to show you still. Let's move region down here, months over there, accounts, and let's go to revenues again. And budget. So some of the functionality that I want to show you is it's possible to fill areas of a cube. Very often in a budget scenario you want to start off with something basic, so I might want to fill in January, and then I can click right and say fill right. So that's what I'm going to do now, and you will now see that February and March have got the same values. The quarter have obviously updated as well because these values is aggregated new. You can copy and paste, so it's possible to click right and say copy and paste it somewhere else, like you can do in Excel spreadsheets. And then the final thing that I want to show you is how you can create graphs inside the interface. So tomorrow we'll look more at creating graphs inside Excel. We're going to do it for January, February, and March. And we are going to do it for Here's another button I want to show you. It's the drill down button. So I select a member that has got children. I click on it, I click on the drill down button, and it shows me all of the children. I don't want total region in my graph, so this is the data on which I want to build a graph, and I want to make it a pie chart. There you go. And I think it's possible to drill down on any area, so I can say drill down, and that will show me the values that make up that value in my database. So that brings us to the end of session 2. Session 3, that's tomorrow, we will be dealing with these Excel-based formulas. I hope that you will join us for that. If you haven't registered yet, please download the Word document that contains the links to the 4 presentations or trainings, and also in there in the material is the quick start manual. I see there are no responses or chats in the chat box. I thank you very much again for joining us today. That we've just run over our time. Have a good day further if you are in the States, and good night to other areas of the world. Thank you very much, and bye-bye. Ian. Yeah. Yeah.